Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grev, and welcome to episode 9 of the Rip Rem Reds podcast. I am joined by my co-host Jace, who is not where he usually is. Where are you, Jace?
I'm in Oslo. I'm in Norway. Little work trip by myself. So I spent the Sunday commuting to Norway, missing the football.
It's not that big of a deal. You didn't miss it. You missed a bit, but not a great deal. I'm actually just a bit jealous that you get to jet set around the world, to be honest.
It's not all fun.
Come on. As Bergie would say, it's a GLAMOROUS.
Yeah.
Probably not flying first class though, right?
No, I'm not. I did get upgraded hotel room. I have a
nice.
lovely view of Oslo and the fjords and the water. So I can't complain. It's probably the best view I've ever had from the hotel room, actually. I'm not going to move the iPad and show you.
Not jealous at all. I can see a curtain. So, yeah.
It has been cloudy and raining, though, ever since I've been here. Like, I went for a run in the rain. Like, it's I don't think it's probably going to be sunny when I'm working, so I'm probably not going to get to see the actual mountains because they're all covered in clouds. So, how are you? How has your weekend been?
My weekend has been pretty relaxed. I went to a car boot sale this morning. Very eventful. I thought I'd take the kids just to see what was going on. They both came away with some useless tat, but you know that's what a car boot's for. And then watched one.
What was your bargain? Come on, you must have come home with a bargain.
I didn't really. I can't tell you because it's not a surprise for you, obviously. But it's a surprise. My wife's 40th is coming up, so I've bought some useless presents that are going to be just fun things. So I can't go into all of that, but it's suffice to say it's some useless tat as well. But
Sarah, if you're listening, Grevel has bought you a useless tat for your 40th.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And these are the best presents as well. They're not even the worst presents. So that doesn't mean to go on. Right, on that bombshell, I'm going to whack the intro music on, and then we'll get into our Crystal Palace versus Arsenal preview episode.
Saka. Saka! That is a diamond of a goal! It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent!
This is my club. Fucking love this football club.
Henri. What a goal! Gabriel Martinelli is scoring for Arsenal!
All right, as I said, we start every single episode the same. We go straight into our rip-roaring review. Going to point the finger straight at Jace, who's going to kick us off with something hot, spicy, and probably a bit bold, I'd imagine. What you got to say for yourself, Jace?
I'm saying we can win the league for two reasons. One, De Bruyne is injured for 4 months. We got to hit it. We just got to hit it. Because City will be playing catch-up again, but we shouldn't be making the same mistakes we did last year. Last season, we improved on mistakes we made in the season before. If we do the same again, we should be in a place, I think, where we can be strong enough to try and ride out the challenges we had last season. I just think City not having De Bruyne is a major impact on how they can play and the creative chances they can create, especially for Haaland. I think I said it in a tweet, jokingly on the Rip Roaring Reds account, saying Haaland's injured, let's smash it. Not Haaland's injured, De Bruyne is injured, let's smash it. But genuinely think that there's an opportunity there. They haven't got Paqueta over the line. Will they get him over the line? I'm not sure. The last I saw, the negotiations have fallen apart. They are lacking. Yeah, so they're lacking that creative player, and you can see the impact that's actually having on Haaland. Because, like, I think he's not scored in the first two. Did he score in the first game?
He scored in the first game.
Actually. He did. He scored against Burnley, didn't he? But I mean, from what I saw of the highlights of the Newcastle City game, it didn't. I mean, there wasn't that many amazing opportunities. There was a great goal by Alvarez, but apart from that, it looked a bit of a dead rubber from the highlights. I'm not sure if you watched it and be able to tell me more, but yeah, I just think we have to take this opportunity. We have to take this opportunity. It's an opportunity for us. We're going to have our injury problems as well. But I think we need to take that opportunity while we can. What do you think? Do you think that we have a chance with De Bruyne being injured?
Well, my actual review was probably along similar lines, maybe not exactly as bold and as brazen as you after one game week, or at least 90% of a second game week gone. But yeah, we need to capitalise. I would say that I did watch most of that game. Foden was really good, and I think that he doesn't usually get much of a starting berth whilst De Bruyne is fit and healthy. He's usually more of an impact player, so there could be an opportunity there that he steps in and kind of does a lot of that role. And he was good. Haaland wasn't getting a lot of service during that game, and I think the problem is with Haaland, he can do that. He can be in those games. I think we saw it in the Community Shield, to be honest. He can be in those games and be looking like he's nothing. He can be invisible. He can not really be involved, and they will score 2 goals. And it will just be like, he's just an absolute beast. And he did have opportunities. So it is, I do. Yeah, I still wonder, but I honestly think that Man City's depth isn't that great. If you look at their squad, they have a lot of youth coming through. Like Cole Palmer looks really good when he has kind of come in. And like I say, maybe they get Paqueta, but I think with all the stuff that's happening with him in the background, that might not be something they go for anymore. And I would say that after the last weekend and this weekend so far, no one looks particularly strong. In all honesty, and that includes us. We've obviously only seen us for 90 minutes, and we didn't look that great for the last half an hour against Forest. First half, we did look good, but yeah, the last 20 to 30 minutes, maybe not so much.
Yeah, first half, I felt we were awesome. Second half, it fell down. And I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit more later about what I want to see in the next game. I think I'd agree with you. I don't think anyone stood out yet. There's been some interesting results over the weekend, like Man United. They weren't expecting them to hit it, but Wolves, they didn't look great at all. I think they were very lucky to get that win. With the United Spurs game over the weekend, I didn't see that one, but I saw the highlights, and it looked pretty even as a game actually from the highlights and the chances that Bruno Fernandes had, especially with the header he missed. But I wasn't expecting Spurs to win 2-0. So I think there's not exactly a team in form right now that you can say, wow, that they're the standout just from the first 2 games. And I think it is also too early. But just going back to that City point, like shots on target yesterday, there was 4 shots on target. For City, that's low. The possession wasn't as heavy as it usually is. It was 58 to 42. So there's just a few things in there that I just backs up my kind of thoughts on City. I think they miss an anchor at De Bruyne. I think they're going to miss Mahrez as well, and then Gundogan. So 3 major players that I would argue they've not replaced.
I suspect they'll go into the market and they'll get someone that probably no one's heard of or no one's really keeping an eye on, and they'll be electric because it's what City do. They're able to find gems in the market. But like I say, I don't think they're that strong yet. They of course will come good. So it's really important as we come into our talk later on that we capitalize and get the points on the board. There's only 2 teams I think that have won both games so far. That's Brighton, who we're going to chat a little bit about later, and City. So right. Let's get into our first segment, and which is all going to be about the news around the club. There's lots of stuff going on. Myself and Jace haven't had a pod for a week, so there's been a lot of news going in and out of the club. I suppose the biggest thing that's been happening over the past week is the news on Jurrien Timber, which is not fantastic news, obviously, and I'm interested to hear your take on what do you think about the injury and where do you think Arsenal will go post this news?
I get the impression that we might dip into the market because I feel like the squad players that we have, we still want to get rid of. And so he was meant to come in to replace some of the players that did provide depth that were not good enough. Holding, for example, as a centre-back, but also he can play right back, Timber can, and he can play left back. So if you take Holding out, if you take Tierney out, Tavares was meant to be a depth player. He never made it in the first season. Then he went out to Marseille. And then you've got Cedric. But Cedric, I mean, just leave. Cedric, just leave. Just go. Sorry, no, I don't care. If you look at that, then we are ultimately going to potentially be actually short, a little bit short. We could be cutting it fine. We still have quality depth in all the positions in theory, but when we get one injury, it tends to spiral, and then it's one leads to two, sometimes three at one time. And so that's my kind of concern. And I think we might dip into the market. And I think we're going to talk about outgoings, which we might see some this week. And so I think we'll dip into the market. That's my gut feel. But the question is who? Do you feel the same? And do you think we're going to dip into the market? If we are, do you think there's anyone in particular we might go for?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about who's out in the market. I think maybe you have a better idea than I do in terms of who might be available and who we could go for. But for me, I agree on the shortness that we have. I wonder, there's a lot of talk post the injury to Jurrien Timber about the medical staff, the team. Did they approach it correctly? Was he allowed to come out for the second half prematurely? And would they have done something differently? All the talk that's come out of that is that, they did all the tests, everything was kosher. And then, it's just an accident that happened and nothing they could have done about it, which is, yet to be seen, I suppose. But one thing I think we do know, Arteta and his training regime is intense. It is really vigorous. It is really aggressive. And with that, coming cold into a system and then working as hard as they have over pre-season in this game, I think we've seen 3 or 4 ACLs over the last 2 weeks, or at least over the summer, from different clubs around Europe. It does seem to be quite a reoccurring kind of injury, particularly now with training the way that it is. So I do wonder about that, and I wonder maybe how much of a pressurized environment Arteta is creating at training. I know he wants the best, and I know I've said before that he's speed running our way to what he hopes is a Premier League or a Champions League. So I wonder a little bit about that. But yeah, I think we need to dip in. I think we're falling back to a Tomiyasu who can't invert in that role. Zinchenko, we'll talk a little bit later in the Palace preview, but he's probably only 25 games a season. He's not as many games as we'd hope, and so that's problematic. And then I don't think you can fully rely on Kiwior as a left back. He's untested in that position. Yeah, so we'll need to get someone. I think you've got an idea of who you think that might be.
Yeah, I guess we were always after Fresneda from Rio Valladolid back in the January transfer window. He's been sought after by Barcelona most of the window. He's not gone through because they're now going for Cancelo. So he's back on the market. There's news that Pochettino might go for him for Chelsea, but surely Chelsea can't spend any more money. Surely they can't. I don't understand how that is. They've spent over $1 billion inside 12 months. 3 transfer windows of £1 billion. Lavia, Caicedo, this takes the biscuit. This just I don't understand that. People are saying Arsenal spending. Come on, man! We're not spending. I think the stats show that United.
I think we've lost Jason for a second. But one thing I was going to mention on Jason's point about Cancelo, because we would have likely have gone for Cancelo. The issue with Cancelo, I suppose, is that Man City are now looking at us much more of a rival than they ever were before. And so the likelihood is they don't want to allow another player to come to us. They've already had Zinchenko go. It's very unlikely that they're going to let Cancelo go as well, which is unfortunate. But yeah, maybe Fresneda is the option, but I definitely think we'll need to dip into the market. And that's going to be an issue for us over the next 11 days. There's not much of the window left. So we're going to have to get a lot of outgoings first before we even consider who's going to be coming in. And that kind of leads us on to the next part of the news, which is our outgoings. Without Jace, I'm going to talk a little bit about the ones that I kind of know a little bit about. Firstly, it's Florian Balogun, who there has been a lot of interest over the course of this window. And I think that one's definitely going to come down to the wire. And it's also going to come down to the wire in terms of a fee. We've had interest from Inter, who was in the region of 35 million, which I think that Arteta and the club have deemed not enough, which I can agree with. I think we've talked on the pod previously about what do we determine as a good amount for Balogun, considering the contract, considering his loan last season and the output that he got from that loan, his age, and I think his ceiling as well. So there is interest around London. I think, Chelsea need a striker. West Ham probably need a striker. Palace need a striker. There's some good clubs in and around London that are going to need to get some business done. And as such, I think that they all have a bit of money as well, which is probably a good thing. If they've got the money, then it means we can likely get something for him. It's just wondering whether or not they'll actually put their money where their mouth is, and that one will happen. So Balogun's on his way out for sure. Let's see what happens there. And then there's a few others. Tavares has been on the chopping block. He's apparently said no to both Nottingham Forest and West Ham, which is leaving our options a little bit slim. I would say on Tavares, though, there is money on the table there for him. I think that you look at his age, you look at the length of his contract left, you look at he's a very raw talent. I don't think that Arteta has managed to get the best out of him, but there is opportunity there that we could go and get Tavares to be shown the door if the right thing comes in. I think we could get 20 to 25 million for Tavares. Hello, Jason. Jason's joined us back again. Hopefully everything's working. I've gone through Balogun, Jace. I was just talking about Tavares. A little bit about that Forest and West Ham is probably not going to happen. But I was going to say, and I said that he's a very raw talent. I don't think Arteta's got the best out of him yet. And I think that certain managers could get more out of him. So there could be 20 to 25 million on the table for him. I think you mentioned that Aston Villa have kind of reached out to see if there's a loan option for him, which I don't think we should go for if there is.
Yeah, it seems like all of our left backs only get offers for loans. They're both Tavares and Tierney are worth money. But yeah, I saw earlier that apparently they're inquiring about loans, and Forest was a negotiation around 13 million, and the negotiations broke down. Clearly, we wanted 15 to 20. Clearly, we weren't getting what we wanted there. So it's difficult, right? We do need to get some players out. We need to get some money in because I think we still need to do some business. So yeah, it's a little bit of an annoying one. The only thing I was going to say just with Tavares was that I don't understand the signing actually in reflection, because he was very, very good and a very attacking profile, but the profile of left back that Arteta wanted was never that profile. It was a real miss on recruitment, and it still baffles me, that one, because he's a really good player and I actually don't want to lose him, but I'd play him as a left winger. I wouldn't play him as a left back. Maybe you could play him. I don't know if you could move Trossard or Martinelli onto the right and be the Saka backup, because I think he is deadly in attack. He is deadly in a left wing position, but he can't play left back, not in our formation.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem there, right? I think that we've got quite a lot of options at left wing that necessarily we don't at right wing. We definitely need a backup for Saka. I just don't see us going into the market to get one of those either at the moment, particularly with our outgoings the way that they are. It could come down to the wire to get one of those in, but I just don't see it. I think the Timber injury is going to make us move, because let's look at the facts. Timber was playing the last 3 games in that position as a left inverted back and was doing exceptionally well at it. He obviously does not trust Tierney in that position.
No.
And as such, if Zinchenko can't play the games that we think he can, then we're going to have to find somebody else that can at least do half the games. So yeah, a bit of an odd one. Like I don't think Kieran Tierney can leave right now unless Arteta has 90 to 95% assurance that he has a backup that he can get during the window that can do the job that he wants that person to do.
Yeah. I was mentioning Fresneda may be the only option. He would be a right back though, which means you have Tomiyasu and Zinchenko left back. But just also on that kind of point of depth that you were talking about, I was thinking, wow, my hotel Wi-Fi dropped out. we only actually really have 3 players that can stay fit through the season at the back. White, Gabriel, and Saliba. Well, hopefully Saliba. Yes, we did have a challenge with him at the end of last season. But Tierney consistently always has injuries. Zinchenko always has injuries. Tomiyasu always has injuries. Kivior, I guess we don't know enough yet. But when you consider those injuries, and then Timber's out for the year, it's not as much depth as we were laughing about a couple of podcasts ago with the spoiled riches that we have. One injury really makes me look differently at the defence, and that's a concern. So interesting to see what we do this week.
I mean, the thing I was looking at maybe before was that I always look at I've talked a lot about incremental gains previously, and how the delta between the first and second choice becoming much closer than it is at other clubs. And that's kind of what we had, the difference between right back, for left back, if you're comparing Zinchenko and Timber, much closer. If you're comparing the drop off in our centre backs, much closer. In the centre of the park, the same. If we were doing a Rice downgrade to Partey, if that's how we were going to go, then it's much closer, right? And those are where in other teams' systems, like Rodri, when Rodri gets injured from Man City, who's Calvin Phillips? Like, honestly, but it's not it. So I agree with you. One injury does kind of cause a lot of chaos into our system, which is why I think we need to dip back in. Let's see where it takes us.
Yeah. We need money first. That's a fact.
Yeah, exactly. We need to get ready. And we've got 11 days left. We're going to have to, we're going to have to act. And I think there will be some times where 35 million for Balogun might just be taken just to get moving in the market. We might be forced to kind of take a little bit of a hit in that respect.
All right, Premier League already. Premier League results this weekend. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big weekend. I'm always going to talk about some of the clubs that I have it out for. I'm going to leave them a second and go into them in a minute. I think the biggest one that for me that looked super exciting was Brighton. They're looking crazy good. It's so weird when they just keep losing what we determine their best players, and yet they just keep ripping other teams to shreds. And it's it's Matoma, it's Gross, it's March, it's even Danny Welbeck's getting in on the act. Like, it's crazy to think that the team that they've got and who have they sold? They sold Concedo, right? They've sold McAllister to Liverpool. Like, it's absolutely insane to think that they're losing what we believe they're top draw players, yet De Zerbi is getting some absolute class out of this team. I'm excited. They play exciting football. I've got nothing against Brighton, so I'm really interested in watching them. I love the brand of football. I love the style. And just really exciting to watch as well. So it's super excited to kind of see them kick on and keep doing what they're doing. Spurs, yesterday, I don't know if you caught any of the Spurs game. I think you mentioned a little bit of the highlights, and it looked like a bit of a dead rubber, right? Is that what you said?
No, that was the City Newcastle. It didn't look like a dead rubber. It looked like there was quite a few chances on both sides, and United had a couple of chances that they should have put away. I just was very surprised to see Spurs win 2-0. Shows United's defensive frailties and the lack of a consistent goal scorer for them. But Spurs, on the other hand, very surprised. Did not expect that. Kind of like, it's kind of that feeling as an Arsenal fans, like, they might be quite good actually.
I don't know if it's that far yet. I would say that United's record against the top 6 last season was shocking. So I wouldn't necessarily read like heaps into it. And Spurs always do have a way of turning over some of the bigger teams. They do it with City like every time. I would say maybe they're not as dead in the water as maybe we'd hoped or expected them to be. They do actually play quite good football, and he's quite likable, their new manager, which is a bit shameful to say as an Arsenal fan. So I would, I do think that they probably will win some games and batter some teams, but I also think the opposite. They're going to take a thumping by some teams as well because they play quite openly, and they're quite poor at the back. I think United were completely toothless. To be honest, like you say, Rashford just doesn't look at the races at all. And this is coming from a guy who's got him in fantasy football, and like both him and Fernandes, who are both abject yesterday. Their midfield, I remember a close friend of ours had mentioned that they've got the best midfield trio in the league with Mount, Casemiro, and Fernandes. Spurs were passing through that midfield for absolute laughs yesterday. Absolutely tore them to shreds, really, and it was embarrassing from them. So I thought they were going to be really, really good this season, and I know that we're only 2 games in, but they were lucky to get the win against Wolves. Wolves battered them for the past 20 minutes, and I mean, Wolves are not great, as you've just said. So yeah, it's just an interesting game, that one, to watch.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. I think Arsenal have the best midfield in the league at the moment. Like, just from watching that first, I might completely be eating my words tomorrow, but from what we saw at the Forest game in the first half, if you have Partey, Rice, and Odegaard, that is a beautiful midfield three. I don't think there's a stronger midfield than that. I think if you have City have De Bruyne and Rodri fit, then yeah, you could argue that that's stronger. But they don't have them at the moment. So in the moment, that does make me feel good. It's other areas of the pitch that worry me. So this week we released the 3rd kit. Have you seen it? Have you got it? Has it arrived?
It has not arrived. I have ordered it. I ordered it alongside the authentic version of the away kit. I thought I'd go for the authentic version because I'd seen a lot of comments about the away shirt normal version. However, I'm annoyed now that obviously the 3rd shirt also has some other patterns and other various extras on the authentic kit, which I'm like also now going, damn, should I have got that one? But too late now. We're going to wait to see. I go on a holiday on Friday to Spain, so I'm hoping to get both of these kits so I can wear them sunning on the beach, basically. What about you, Jace? Have you got it? Is yours there?
Mine's being delivered while I'm in Oslo, so I don't know if hopefully it's there when I get back. But I did actually, in the airport in Heathrow, there was a sports shop, and I went in and just picked it up and had a look. It's a very. Do you know what? I think the green is my favorite kit this year. The Canon, it's just old school. It's retro with the Canon. It looks great. It looks nice. Just classic vintage. I like it very much. Can't wait to wear it.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think it is the best of the 3. I think also I would say that they've done some absolutely stunning work, the club, with our kits, not just the actual kits themselves, but the PR and marketing work around them. The launch video for this 3rd kit was just stunning work. The behind the scenes little video of Saliba being the creative director, taking the photos of Odegaard, just like chef's kiss. They are, if we fall over as a football club, I think we'll always have a bit of a future in selling off merchandise anyway. I don't think we've got any harm in wondering if we'll go down the toilet that way.
We just need to keep Adidas paying us more money. We keep buying it. They keep giving the club more money, right? Because I think that's one thing is Adidas, we just suckers for their merch. But hey, if we get that sort of transfer budget, I guess
when they start running out of retro ideas for kits, hopefully they'll come full circle. I think you said this before, right, Jace? We can start re-releasing some of our. If we re-released a black kit, for example, in like 5 to 10 years' time,
I'll go like hotcakes
all over it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, do we need to get to the actual review of the Palace game or preview?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's first talk about lineups then. What do you think? Because I have some not whole lofty opinions, but some ideas on what we might do and how we might shape it. But I'm keen to hear, what do you think?
I think it's going to be very similar to the Palace game last season. Eddie will be in for Jesus. That's a fact. I just the way he's been playing. I think that's a bang on start. But then I think we're not going to be going away to Palace and doing what we did at home to Forest with regards to the defence and the pivot. So I expect to see a back 4 of White, Gabriel, and Saliba. I was reading Zinni had 60 minutes against Luton. So when we had the behind closed doors friendly against Premier League opposition. Well, yeah, they are in the Premier League. So yeah, if he's made 60 minutes, then I don't know if that's enough for him to start. I'd take it over maybe playing Tommy because you need that invert. Midfield picks itself. We all know my preferred 3. So I'd put Havertz on the bench. So yeah, that's my and then the same. I would probably start Trossard over Martinelli maybe for this game, maybe. Even though Martinelli was very good against Forest, he was skinning Aurier. I think it might require a different nous. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the lineup. Question to you, though, haven't talked about it. Does David Raya start?
No, is my answer. I think it's far too early to be killing Ramsdale's confidence in such a way, and I don't think this is necessarily a game that you'll need like high distribution for either, which is what Raya kind of accelerates over Ramsdale. But I'm sure you might have seen the little video on the social media of them doing their keeper coaching session, and both of them looked proper on it. I know that we've talked a lot in previous pods about whether or not they're competition for each other as a first and second choice, and whether or not you do that for a goalkeeper position. I'm still of the idea that we've got two of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League right now. So don't be sniffing or scoffing at that, right? Even if you do think one's first, one's second choice, ultimately those two things don't matter. When one's falling off, the other one's going to come in, and vice versa. And that is not something you want to be worried about, let's be honest. So I still think Ramsdale will start. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty clear on the lineup alongside you. I think the only thing that's going to change is that Partey isn't going to be the right back. He's going to go. And I think we'll go back to Gabriel Saliba again as our centre-backs rather than Gabriel on the bench. So the pivot will be Partey Rice and Ødegaard through the middle. I, like you, think Havertz will drop to the bench. He dropped to the bench in my fantasy team because I thought that's what exactly might happen. Although I suspect if Eddie does start, which I think he will, Havertz will get 20 to 30 minutes as a 9. I think that will likely happen through the middle. I think Martinelli starts over Trossard simply because he did put in an absolute shift and a workhorse during that Forest game. And if we weren't already starting Trossard on the pre-season that he had, it's not likely that we're going to be starting him above Martinelli in a game such as this. I just don't think it's the game that really makes sense for him to do that. But yeah, Zinchenko for me, I think plays, and I suspect he'll play if he can. Depending on the result, most of the game. Like if you watched the Villa game earlier today, who were once they were 3-0 up, they just like dismantled their entire team and just moved all their solid players out to the bench and put a load of other people on. I think that's if we're able to put the game to bed like we didn't do against Forest, then we will have some options to kind of move these players to the bench and get some movement through the legs of the likes of Tierney, Trossard, and others.
Yeah. Man, are Everton going down?
I mean, they looked really poor. I've said this before. I'm a big fantasy football kind of player, and a lot of people in preseason were picking Pickford because he's cheap, but also obviously I know I don't get it either.
He's going to shed goals like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's cheap and he can, there is some good defenders in Everton's ranks. Tarkowski, Keane, there's some good players there. But they just don't seem to. I don't know. Yeah, I think you had them going down in our Premier League predictions.
Yeah, right? I had them like 19th or something.
Yeah. So I mean, looking at the way they're looking right now, yeah, it's not going good for them.
Wolves, Everton, Luton. See ya.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see a bit more about Luton. Obviously, their game wasn't going ahead this weekend because their ground's still not ready, which is funny enough in itself. Yeah, let's see. I mean, I'm interested from you. What do you think about the result for this game? Do you think that it's got Arsenal win written all over it or not?
2-0 away win. We've got rid of the curse. We need to put in a performance. I think Eddie's going to run riots, not necessarily from like a goal scoring perspective, but just like the press. You're going to see an Eddie which will be pressing aggressively, just like it was in the first half against Forest, actually. So, yeah, I think a 2-0 away win. But tomorrow, when we actually put our predictions in, you might see me go 3-1 away win. Because I always go 3-1.
Yeah. I think it's going to be tight, to be honest, this game. I agree with you. This is perfect Eddie territory. This is the kind of game and the setup and the kind of teams that he likes to play against, and I think he can do well against. So I agree with you there. What did we play? Was it the home game? Was it Selhurst Park? We opened the Premier League last season in the pink kit, and we did really well against them. Was that the same game?
Yeah, that's when we realised how good Gabby Jesus was, because he was running that game. I remember, and I that opened my eyes because I didn't watch him in the same way at Man City. I got very excited. So that was the game. That was a very exciting game last year, and I'm hoping we can see more of the same again tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you, I agree that I think we'll win, but I think it'll be much tighter. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. We've not necessarily been very tight at the back all during pre-season. So I still think we concede. I think 2-1 is probably, more where it's going to be. But we'll see. It's going to be tight.
We always have one. That's what we say. We always have one in us to let in. So yeah, I think I said 2-0. I probably end up going 3-1 by tomorrow night. That's probably what my confidence level will be.
Well, I mean, Palace have got some good players. Elise, SA, they've got some good people in their ranks that can do damage to us. They've got some, they might not have a Zaha anymore, who used to put some of our players on strings sometimes, but they've got some really young, good, agile, technical talent in their midst that can do damage to us. We'll have to wait and see if we can. I wonder if teams, because a lot of teams just seem to set up with a low block because they know that's necessarily how to nullify our attack. We've seen it plenty of times already, and that's where the Havertz substitution might have to come earlier should they set up like that. But I don't think Hodgson and Palace have been set up that way in any of the games that I've seen. They play quite forward-thinking attacking football, so I think it's going to be a relatively open game. It's just whether or not I feel that we can do enough to keep it solid at the back. I think with that 4, if Zinchenko can stay fit, there's a chance. But yeah, like you say, we've likely got at least one in us.
Yeah. So you had this down as a note. How important is the result versus the performance? What is that for you?
Because, and I think this is, coming off the Forest last season, and I think that it was good that we played Palace, and it kind of mirrors it a little bit. Like last season, we had a really good preseason, right? Last year, and then we walked into the season, and that carried on, and our electric, dynamic, athletic kind of attacking football was coming across in every game, and it was amazing to watch, and it was really exciting. And sometimes it was more about the performance than the results, although they were both coming in spades. We were all kind of like, it's just great to watch the Arsenal do what Arsenal do. Right now, couldn't care less. Could not care less. We can play the most dross football ever. Couldn't care. All I care about is getting those 3 points on the board. We and I said this in previous pods, we've got a really good opening gambit here. If you look at so was it Chelsea? Obviously Chelsea had Liverpool last week. They've got West Ham this week. I think Spurs had Man United, and who do they have? Who did they have last week? I can't remember. But a lot of teams in Brentford. A lot of teams in and around us, they haven't necessarily got the same opener that we do. I think our first 5 to 6 games look relatively. Man United at home, but I judging by the way that they've looked so far, I can see that being totally winnable. I think there is at least a chance there that we've got 15 to 18 points, and it's a good opportunity for us to put a stake in the ground and kind of make headway in the league as we did last year. Because we have a relatively terrible closing segment to the league, and thus we need to make sure that we get the points on the board now. So I don't care about the performance. I want the result. It'd be nice to have both, but can't necessarily always have your cake and eat it.
Yep, I'm the same. Result over performance is the priority for me. If I could see anything, and I mentioned I want to talk about this, if I can see any kind of improvement, it is defensive. I call this defensive endurance, and what I mean by that is the mental endurance, because what we see in games is mental lapses, or whether that's fatigue, or whether that's just you just can't be on it mentally for the whole game, and but those blips, that's when we make it hard for ourselves. We let a go, it's not like we let a few sloppy counterattacks in. We let a goal in. We just tend to always randomly concede out of nowhere when we're absolutely control of the game. And so for me, it's around, can we sustain that mental endurance from the defensive side for 90 minutes and stay compact and stay tight and play the game out, frustrate them from an attacking sense, and that's really important for me. So that's the one thing I want to see out of tomorrow night, alongside the 3 points. If I can have two things, it's that.
I think you raised a good point there, because I think you're right. That mental fragility that we kind of exhibit in games is something that rears its head quite often. I'm sure we've all seen the meme where it's like a guy and it says Arsenal, and there's a guy with a bat behind him who also says Arsenal. Arsenal going to Arsenal, and that's kind of what we do. So it'd be good to kind of get some of those out of the system. This is either the first or second youngest team in the league. There is obviously going to be some frailties there that are just because of the immaturity that we have in our squad that haven't been learned and kind of tested yet. And last season was one of those barometers where we did get to a point where you could test that kind of level and see where they're at. And obviously we weren't quite there. And this is all an experience. We're hopefully going to grow and learn upon those changes from last year and kind of hopefully, kick on. And I would say just from this game as well, and I think, coming out the Forest game, more and more and more important now, no more injuries. We cannot afford injuries this early in the season, particularly to ones that are critical to our system. And so if Zinchenko is not fully fit, I would not be risking him in a game like this. If we were playing Man City right now, then yes, I think I'd say we're going to have to. But I think we can roll out a Tomiyasu or a Tierney in this game and still be okay. That being said, I would love to see Zinchenko. Obviously, I would. I do think he's fit and he's been in training. He's done 60 minutes against Luton. I think he's there. But if there's doubts, niggles, let's not do that right now. That is a silly idea to have this early in the season.
Yeah, I know. So, car park. Have you got anything in the parking lot?
Anything in the parking lot? Well, only personally. I'm going on holiday on Friday. I cannot wait for a holiday. I'm in desperate need of having some time off from work. Dead excited about that. And I'm also, for those who, I'm sure we talked about this in the last game, I hurt my foot. No idea why. It's still hurting now. So I'm hoping I can get that sorted before I go on holiday, so I don't have to hobble around by the pool.
So you're not playing football this week?
Not tomorrow, no, because I will be watching the game live tomorrow. So I'm going to skipping the game tomorrow, and hopefully myself and Jace will be coming back straight after the game tomorrow to record our reaction pod to hopefully an Arsenal victory over Crystal Palace.
Fingers crossed if the hotel Wi-Fi allows. I'm not gonna commit 100% to it just because I need to figure out, one, where I'm going to watch the game, and two, how I'm going to get back to the hotel in a reasonable time, because I am slightly out of time zone. But yeah, that's the intent. I wanted to just talk about Theo. He announced his retirement this week, which I wasn't quite expecting, because I thought he was going to Reading, because he'd been released by Southampton. We are very local to where Theo grew up. We live in the same town where Theo grew up. Theo played for AFC Newbury. He was 2 years above me, so I also played for AFC Newbury. He's probably the highest ever goal scorer. Maybe I might be corrected by someone who's listening, but I thought he used to bang goals in for fun. But let's talk about his Arsenal career a little bit, because I think he just deserves a mention. He's one of the. He scored over. He's in the. Is it what's 100? A ton?
100 club. Yeah,
he's in the 100. Yeah. He's in the 100 club for Arsenal. There's only 5 greats in the Premier League that have done that: Dennis, Van Persie, Henry, and I forget Ian Wright. Forget that one.
That's a close one.
Well, at least that's what he said on his interview. Gary Neville on the overlap. So if no one correct me on my stats being wrong, I'm blame Theo on that. But he's, he did commit a large amount of his career to Arsenal. He started so young. We forget that he started at 16. So he was like, he's only just 34, and a lot of players are going longer than that now. But when you consider he was in Premier League football from the age of 16, that's actually he's sustained an 18-year career in the Premier League. So he's actually been doing it a very, very long time. And yeah, just, I know a lot of people used to joke about Theo. I think, he was never always as consistent as we'd want him to be. But for me, he is from the town where I live. We played for the same club growing up. He's a local boy, and then he went on to play for Arsenal. So I have a very big soft spot for Theo Walcott. I still have his little frame of a signed Theo picture in my office. So yeah, I'm sad to see him retire. And I thought, I just want to say, what's your greatest memory of Theo? What is your greatest memory of Theo?
It's such a crap one, I think, because it's not a footballing one. It's him on the stretcher going like this. So he had the two fingers up, and the 2-0 when it was against Tottenham. So he came off injured. He was stretchered off by the away fans and just gave it. It was just, that's like a cult classic to me.
Yeah, but other players have done it.
Going to be a goal, surely.
Well, no, that was my first pick. I think that's every Arsenal fan's first pick. I mean, that is a cult thing as well, right? By the way, like you saw Ben White doing it last season as well. I don't know if he was doing it to Spurs.
It just sticks in the memory, right? Because it's one of those things that the goals can, especially if it's gone over 100, it's hard to kind of pinpoint. Whereas it's very rare that we get the opportunity to do something like that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the standout things for me is just one particular season for me, the season when we lost Nasri, when we lost Fabregas, and Van Persie became captain, and we had that really bizarre transfer window where we were buying all these random players right at the end, and that's when we ended up getting Per and Arteta, which from a legacy standpoint is that was like Arsene does it again. Hand off to him. That season, him, Theo Walcott and Ron Van Persie were electric. They dragged us to Champions League football. I don't know how they did it. It was just Theo consistently basically taking on everyone on the wing and somehow getting to Van Persie who can score. So that was just my favourite kind of season and overall memory from Theo. Standout goal, do you know what? I can't actually genuinely remember who it's against. I think it was Newcastle. Actually, there was the hat-trick against Newcastle in like the 7-3 game at the Emirates. That was a very good game. I don't know how one of the goals, he was right on the byline. I don't know how the hell he got it in. That was a great goal. But also for me, like I can't remember the team, so it's not going to be too specific. But Theo is amazing when he's put through on goal and he's sprinting and he doesn't have any time to think, and he can just hit it and place it in one of the corners and hits it first time. A little bit Thierry-esque, but he's doing it at pace. That some of those finishes that I remember from him are amazing. On the other hand, when Theo used to get too much time, he used to mess it up. And I joke at football right on a Monday night, right? Because if I hit it first time, it always goes in. If I have time to think about it, I absolutely screw it up. And every time I do that, I just think of Theo. But yeah, soft spot for him, and just congratulate him on an amazing career, and very proud to see someone from our hometown who played for the Arsenal.
Yeah. I was going to say, because I will pick not a goal, because none of them really truly stand out for me in this game particularly, but I got to go and see the Arsenal Steven Reading 5 game at the Beskey. And he scored a hat-trick. I think he scored there was 2 goals that were the winning goals, obviously, but I think he scored the winning goal in the 120th minute and wheeled off that. It's a crazy game that I was supposed to be in the away end, and I ended up getting tickets, and then they weren't in the away end. They were literally directly behind the dugout, and I had an Arsenal top on, so we were behind, in all the Reading fans, so I had to do my jacket all the way up. And I remember us equalising. I think it was 4-3, and then something like the 92nd or 93rd minute, we equalised to make it 4-4, and I just couldn't help myself. I stand up and screaming, got shouted at by a load of Reading fans. You're not in Millwall, you're in Reading, so it's fine, nothing to worry about. But yeah, Theo Walcott scoring a hat-trick in that game was pretty crazy. Obviously, it came to nothing. It was the Capital Carabao or whatever you would call it back in those days.
I still remember the fact that they drew the game, and then they asked them, like Giroud and a couple of players, chucked their shirts in the crowd.
Yeah, wasn't it? Someone tried to swap their shirt. Was it? Oh my god, was it Frimpong?
Yeah, and they were like, and no one knew they went to extra time.
Yeah, they were like, oh god, I have to go out there for another half an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, good times. Right. That'll do for a relatively, shorter than usual for us, Jace. Preview pod. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Wi-Fi negotiations, logistics. We'll be back again next week for a review of the Palace game. But before we do that and we sign off, Jace, what should they do if they're watching on YouTube?
Please leave comments, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to see not just comments, ask us questions. We want to start doing some more Q&As rather than us asking each other questions. So feel free to put some comments and questions in the chat.
And if they are having this in their ears on their podcast provider, what do we ask them to do there?
Go to your podcast provider's app page and give a 5-star review. And and no less, please.
No less.
than
Yeah,
5 stars.
you know what happens when you give us less than 5. Right. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Hopefully we'll see Arsenal smash Crystal Palace on a Monday night under the lights. If I don't speak to you before then, have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much, Jace, and thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Cheers, guys. Have a good evening.